Welcome to your deep dive all about agroecology. You shared chapter 5 of building and managing agroecological systems with us. And it looks like you're really fascinated by how these systems are designed in the real world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's not just about, planting some veggies out there. It's about this whole interconnected web of elements on the farm and beyond.
Yeah, it is. And that's exactly where landscape ecology comes in, which is, kind of the foundation of this whole chapter. It's all about understanding how everything in the ecosystem, like everything, is connected.
Yeah.
The soil, the water, the plants, the animals, even those tiny microorganisms we can't even see.
So it's like a giant puzzle where all the pieces affect each other.
Exactly. And just like with the puzzle, if you force the wrong pieces together, it's just not going to work.
Right.
Agroecology is about recognizing those connections and designing a system that works with them, not against them.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, the chapter also mentions zoning and land use planning. What exactly does that mean in the context of agroecology?
So think of it kind of like city planning, but for a farm, right?
Quickly.
Zoning is about deciding what to grow where, based on things like soil type, water availability, and sunlight.
Makes sense.
You wouldn't build a skyscraper on unstable ground, would you?
No.
Similarly, in agroecology, you're choosing the best location for each element based on its needs.
It's kind of like strategic placement almost.
Yeah.
To maximize efficiency and sustainability.
Absolutely. And a classic example of this that the chapter talks about is the Three Sisters method, used by indigenous peoples in the Americas.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, they would plant maize, beans, and squash all together.
Oh, interesting.
The maize stalks provide support for the beans to climb. The beans actually fix nitrogen in the soil, which benefits the maize. And the squash spreads out, suppressing weeds and conserving moisture.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. It's like they created a self-sustaining little mini ecosystem right within their fields.
Exactly. It's all about mimicking nature's patterns, to create a resilient and productive system. And what's interesting is that this, kind of ancient wisdom, it's still relevant today. Modern agroecological systems often draw inspiration from these traditional practices, adapting them with contemporary knowledge and technology.
Which brings us to the next point, tools and technologies. I have to admit, I was kind of surprised to see high-tech solutions mentioned in the chapter. Alongside the low-tech ones, I kind of just assumed agroecology was more about going back to basics.
Yeah, there's definitely a strong emphasis on traditional knowledge and practices, but agroecology also recognizes that, appropriate technology can be a really powerful tool for sustainability.
Okay, so give me some examples. What kind of tools are we talking about here?
Well, on the low-tech side, you have things like rainwater harvesting systems. It's a simple concept, right? You're collecting rainwater and you're storing it for later use. This reduces reliance on groundwater, and it makes the system more resilient during times of drought.
Yeah, it seems so simple, but I bet it makes a huge difference. What about composting? I know that's a big part of, organic gardening and things.
Composting is another great example of a low-tech solution with a really high impact. It's essentially recycling organic materials, like food scraps, yard waste, to create these nutrient-rich soil amendments.
Okay.
This reduces the need for synthetic fertilizers, and it closes the nutrient loop right there on the farm.
So even without the, all the fancy technology, there's a lot that can be done to make agriculture more sustainable.
Yeah.
What about on the high-tech side? What kind of things are being used there?
That's where things like soil moisture sensors come to play.
Okay.
These sensors are placed in the soil, and they provide real-time data on moisture levels.
Wow.
This allows farmers to optimize their irrigation, only watering when necessary, which conserves water and saves money.
It sounds like these sensors can help to take the guesswork out of irrigation. What about other digital tools? The chapter mentioned precision agriculture. What exactly does that entail?
Precision agriculture uses technology and data analysis to make farming more efficient and targeted. So, for example, instead of applying fertilizer uniformly across an entire field, farmers can use sensors and GPS mapping to identify areas that need more or less of certain nutrients.
So it's about being more precise and minimizing waste.
Exactly. And this approach not only saves money on inputs like fertilizers, but it also minimizes the environmental impacts.
I can see how those, like the digital tools and the data analysis can be really helpful. In that regard, it feels like there's this whole new world of possibilities.
Absolutely. And what's exciting is that these technologies are becoming more and more accessible and affordable for farmers of all sizes. It's empowering them to make data-driven decisions that benefit both their bottom line and the environment.
It's incredible how technology can be used for good like that. to improve sustainability. And not just in, like big industrial farms, but also in smaller operations.
And, all these tools and technologies are great, but there's another piece of the puzzle that's crucial for any farmer, the economics of it all.
Right, because at the end of the day, farming is a business. So how does this chapter address, like, the financial side of agroecology?
Well, it really emphasizes the importance of doing a cost-benefit analysis. This means looking beyond just the initial investment and considering the long-term financial benefits that agroecological practices can bring.
I can see how that would be important. It's easy to get, caught up in the upfront costs.
Yeah.
And lose sight of the bigger picture. So what are some examples of those long-term benefits?
Well, for one, agroecological practices often reduce the need for those expensive external inputs like your synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. That's a direct cost saving right there.
That makes sense. If you're building healthy soil, you're relying less on those like chemical crutches.
Exactly. And healthy soil leads to healthier crops, which means potentially higher yields over time. Plus, there can be reduced costs associated with things like irrigation, pest control, even labor, because the system is more self-regulating.
It's fascinating how it all ties together. The chapter also talks about marketing and value addition, which I thought was really intriguing. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, value addition is essentially about, taking those raw agricultural products and turning them into something more, something with a higher value. It could be as simple as turning tomatoes into jars of homemade sauce or drying herbs to create unique tea blends.
Oh, okay. So instead of just selling like a bushel of apples, a farmer could make and sell apple pies or apple butter.
Precisely. And this not only adds value to the product, but it also opens up new revenue streams and helps reduce waste by utilizing surplus crops.
I love that idea, turning like potential waste into a profit, while also offering customers, a more diverse range of products. It seems like farmers markets and those community-supported agriculture programs, CSAs, would be a natural fit for this kind of approach.
Absolutely. These direct-to-consumer models allow farmers to build relationships with their customers and to get a better price for their products, especially when those products are unique and locally sourced.
It's a win-win situation for both the farmer and the consumer. The farmer gets a fair price and the consumer gets, fresh, high-quality food while supporting a local business.
Exactly. And it's a great example of how agroecology goes beyond just, the ecological aspects. It also encompasses the social and economic dimensions of sustainable food systems.
Now, the chapter also touched on the concept of niche markets. Could you explain what those are and how they relate to agroecology?
So niche markets are specialized segments of the market that cater to specific consumer demands or preferences. For example, there's a growing demand for organic, locally grown and sustainably produced food. Agroecological farmers are really well positioned to tap into these markets because their practices align perfectly with these values.
So it's about finding the right audience for your products, an audience that appreciates the values behind your production methods.
Exactly. And this allows agroecological farmers to potentially command a premium price for their products because they're offering something unique and desirable. It also reinforces the idea that consumers have power. By choosing to support these farmers, they're voting with their wallets for a more sustainable food system.
That's really empowering. It makes me think about all the choices we make as consumers and how they can have this ripple effect throughout the entire food chain. But I have to be honest, as someone who's not a farmer, I sometimes feel overwhelmed by all this information. It's like, where do I even begin?
That's a great point. And it's something the chapter acknowledges as well. It can feel daunting. But remember, transitioning to an agroecological system is a process. It's not like an overnight switch. It's about starting with small, manageable steps and gradually building from there.
So baby steps toward a bigger goal.
Exactly. And those first steps might be as simple as starting a compost bin in your backyard, or growing some herbs in pots on your balcony, or seeking out local farmers markets to support farmers in your community.
Those are all great ideas. And I bet even those small actions can create, a sense of empowerment and connection to the food system.
Absolutely. Every little bit helps. And as you learn and grow, you can gradually incorporate more and more agroecological principles into your life, whether it's in your garden, your food choices, or your advocacy efforts.
It really feels like agroecology is about shifting our mindset. It's about seeing the interconnectedness of everything and working with nature instead of trying to control it.
It is. It's a holistic approach that considers not just the farm itself, but also the surrounding environment and the community it supports.
And speaking of community, I think it's important to acknowledge that transitioning to agroecology can be challenging,
Yeah.
especially for, farmers who are used to conventional methods. Is there a sense of support out there for those who want to make the shift?
Absolutely. There's a growing movement of farmers, researchers, and organizations that are dedicated to, promoting and supporting agroecology. There are workshops, conferences, online resources, even mentorship programs available to help farmers learn these new techniques and connect with others who are on the same journey.
That's reassuring to hear. It sounds like there's a real sense of community and collaboration in this field.
There is, and that's one of the beautiful things about agroecology. It recognizes that we're all in this together and that we can achieve so much more by sharing knowledge and supporting each other.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We've covered so much ground, from the principles of landscape ecology to the economic viability of agroecological practices. What's the key takeaway you'd like our listener to walk away with?
I hope they've gained a deeper appreciation for the complexity and the beauty of these agroecological systems. It's not just about growing food, it's about creating this harmonious relationship between humans and nature, a relationship that benefits both the planet and the people who inhabit it.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And for our listener who's been exploring Chapter 5 of their handbook, what's one, thought-provoking question they could consider as they continue their learning journey?
Now that they've learned about designing and managing agroecological landscapes, I'd ask them to reflect on this. How could they apply some of these principles to their own lives? Even if they don't have a farm, whether it's starting a small garden, supporting local farmers, or simply being more mindful of their food choices, there are countless ways to kind of embrace the spirit of agroecology.
That's a wonderful challenge to leave our listener with. And for all of you deep divers out there, keep those questions coming and we'll keep exploring together. Until next time.